Few founders embody grit and long-term conviction like Angel Cisneros. Long before Mexico's startup ecosystem caught much attention, Angel was building. In 2007, he co-founded Quiubas, a bootstrap company that transformed into Mexico's market leader in messaging infrastructure powering authentication for some of the world's largest platforms. After more than a decade of relentless execution, Quiubas reached 95% market share and was ultimately acquired by Twilio in 2020. Now, Angel is back in the founder's seat with Saptiva, an AI infrastructure company designed to give Latin America its own sovereign footing in the next technological wave. In today's conversation, we'll cover Angel's early entrepreneurial spark, the sacrifices behind building Quiubas without outside capital, what it means to sell to a Silicon Valley giant, and why he believes Latin America must stop only consuming technology and start producing it. And Hel, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mac. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, I appreciate it. I was mentioning you before we recorded. I know we follow each other on a few social platforms, so I feel like I've got to know you from afar, but definitely excited to learn about your journey. And as you started to dive into this ecosystem way before many other people were even interested when it comes to technology in Mexico. So excited to start talking.
Excited to share some of my journey and to share it with you. And now I know that you're an Entourage fan.
How were you as a kid? Like, were you very curious? Did you have some hobbies that you did? And do you still do any today?
Yes, I mean, I think that one of my hobbies and passions and what I like, as you can see on the background, to make a change. This is my man cave. I usually do the podcast on my office, but it was I felt it was more appropriate. I started playing football, like real football, not soccer, right? Since I was 5. So I started playing flag football, and I played until I was 24, something. So that's something that really helped me with the discipline, hustling, and overcoming challenges. So I think that actually reflects my mindset and my grit as a founder now. So of course I don't play football anymore, not even flag football. I mean nowadays, but that kept me like a discipline and something that you have to do besides building. So nowadays I do. I'm not a sports guy 100%, right? But what I do is that I go to the gym. I used to do CrossFit, but now I changed to a functional part in the mornings. Then in the evenings I box. I like boxing, and Thursdays I play golf. So that's my
super active. Was it popular American football when you were growing up, or were you more of an outlier playing it?
No, it was a kind of. I mean, Mexico has always had a big fan base, right? Especially for the Cowboys, the Steelers, right? Back in León, Guanajuato, my hometown, and Aguascalientes, where I was born. I mean, there was just one team in town, right? Mexico City has. I have no idea how many, right? But there's a lot of people playing football. Of course, not as soccer, but yeah, I mean, there are several leagues, and nowadays I think in Mexico there are 2 professional leagues.
So I actually saw recently there's a team in, I think, Monterrey that now some of the former Carolina Panthers offensive linemen just acquired. I don't know what he's playing. It's called I forgot, like the Rams or something, or I don't know what it is, but I'll find it and send it to you. I don't know. Anyway, so it was obvious you were into sports. There was this discipline aspect that you grew up on. And then where did you get this entrepreneurial bug? Because I do see this theme of entrepreneurship most people have when they're young.
Yes, I mean, I don't come from a business family. My dad, he was a pilot, private pilot. My mom, I mean, she just took care of us with my brothers. So she used to work part time. Then she didn't, right? So it's a very traditional family. So but one thing is that my dad, I mean, I fall in love with airplanes, right? But I always say it's one thing is to fly them and other thing is to own them. But living and having access to the airplanes, and even though I didn't fly or own them, but it just opened my mind. My dad used to tell me, hey, the only heritage and my obligation as a father is to show you what's out there.
Right.
You're not getting it from me.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you perspective. You can see where everything is. Yeah.
Exactly. You want to go there? I mean, go. But my obligation as a father is to show you what's out there. I started liking that, what it was out there, right? Like perhaps like the I don't want to say like the luxury, but in a certain way it is, like the luxury of traveling, the cars, the airplanes, the lifestyle.
Your perspective was opened up because of your
Exactly.
father's profession.
Exactly. So that lifestyle caught my eye. So I was like, okay, I have to do something in order to do that. And then I had no idea. I mean, obviously, I wanted to be a pilot, but then my dad gave me a very good advice back when I was in junior high. And he told me, hey, I don't know what we were talking about or where that advice came from, but he just told me, hey, if you want to be rich, don't be a pilot. And he said, I mean, we live good. I mean, we had a good way of living, but but I don't get to do what I want, right? So that really struck on my mind when I was, like 12, 13. But by that time, I already had my computer that my dad gave me when I finished. I was gonna say graduated, but I don't think you graduate from elementary, right? So when I got that, because I was supposed to get a motorcycle as a gift after elementary, because my dad loved them. But then he just started saying, "Hey, you're misbehaving, so you're not getting that. You're getting a computer." And I was like, "Why do I want a computer for?" I'm talking about 1992. We were passing by through a computer store, and my dad just parked the car. He went into the store and he said, "Okay, I just got you a computer. Let me see what I got you. It's a Lanix 386, 2 megabytes of RAM." And I said, okay, good. So the guy who owned the store started giving me 5 hours of classes to learn how to use a computer because I had no idea. I only knew how to play Test Drive on the computer. Maybe you're familiar with it, or the Cat in the Alley thing. So that's when I fall in love with computer, and when I started programming by myself, I think that's when I got the tick on building something. I was amazed by the fact that having just a blank screen, you could do something, right? Why? But you still had to write. I mean, there was no vibe coding or no visual things. You just had to type, right? So I was amazed. Like, okay, I did this, and now I see this. I was able to do this line going around the borders, painting different colors. So it everything started matching on my mind, right? And then I started selling homeworks in high school. Yeah, the computer projects and all that. That's when I said, hey, I want to build a company. I have no idea what or why, but
But
but,
I'm
but I
going
want to
to.
build.
And I asked
Exactly.
this question again. Were you like I think your friend groups are very impactful to people. Were you an outlier or did you start seeing a different shift in who you were hanging out with, right?
At the time, I was my friends, my football friends. I mean, at that age, it was starting, like parties and going on and all that. I just Yeah, I just didn't. One thing is that because I started selling websites because that was the easy thing to do, right? And then I started getting some money to actually go out, but then I didn't want to go out because I was building websites.
Yeah, it's like this cycle. I got money, but I don't want to spend it. I want to make more.
Exactly. So it was just like that part. And then I started hanging out with some friends. Interestingly to mention is that I started hanging out with one friend that was in college, but this friend was also in the same junior high and high school. And we only said, our hellos and that's it. But in college, we started hanging out because he knew how to do all the image editing and all that. I wasn't good at. So we started working together, and I mean, and we're still very good friends up to this day. And then I started getting together with another guy who was also in the same school before, and he has his own company with his brother. So it was kind of the same story. But yeah, so like you start hanging around with
Your in-
people.
your interests are leading you to other people, and then the doors open and so forth.
Exactly, and then you start seeing like, oh, there's
Oh,
a
there's
whole
other,
different.
yeah, other different world. And I think that's a very common thing that I hear and listen to people is you almost unforcefully, but naturally just start meeting more people and It's not that your other friend groups you're not close with, it's just your interests have changed as you grow up, and I notice that now as an adult. You just sometimes drift apart, and it's okay.
Oh, totally, totally. And I think with the new people that you meet, since they're more aligned to your vision, to your ideas, you become closer.
Okay, so there was probably a few things in between, but what ultimately led to the inspiration of Cubis and how it came about?
That's a funny story. I came up with the idea when I was attending a wedding from one of my cousins. So my other cousin, the cousin that was getting married, brother, he was sitting next to me, and he said, "Hey, I'm talking about 2006, pre iPhone. Well, I think iPhone was released in the US.
iPhone, but just in the US and at a price point that you couldn't many people couldn't
Exactly.
afford, let alone in Mexico.
Exactly. No, nobody even knew what an iPhone was, right? So 2006, everything was super expensive. A lot of people didn't have credit balance. They couldn't even do top ups, right? So if you had a postpaid plan, it was very common that people ask you, "May I borrow your phone to send a text or to send to dial someone?" And I will hang up before they pick up, so they won't
It
charge you.
doesn't charge. No,
Yeah,
I'm 31. I remember the first phone I got had a number of text messages you could send per month, my limit, and I'd always go check. How crazy and dumb does that sound now?
it was totally crazy, right? So with my cousin Luis, he's like 4 years younger than me, so he was still in college, and he asked me, "Primazo," that's how he calls me. May I borrow your phone to send a text to Laura, his now wife? Yeah. So I was like teasing him, "Why, you don't have any money?" Of course not. I'm a student. I have to wait till the end of the month for my allowance. So we started discussing, like, and then I said, wouldn't it be cool to have a way to send texts, because I can pay it, because I mean I'm already making my money, but students, a very common thing to call them estudiambres. Right. I remember that I told my cousin, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool to have something that you send a text, and the text said, 'Text brought to you by Coca-Cola,' or something." So I just kept that idea, and then started working on how to make that happen.
Wow. That's so interesting because at the time, people were like, "Why would you do that?" But then, "Maybe I don't have to pay." Oh my god, that's amazing.
And the name, me having an engineering background, when I did that, when I was able to do the connectivity and messaging and all that, I put it up in a web portal, and I wanted to call it mismensajitos.com, something like that, which was, very engineer concept. And then we said, then my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, he was still in college, but he majored in law. So it is a funny combination between us. So we were like, and he was like, "That's a very stupid name." Okay, so we started discussing. We hired a small marketing agency, and I came up with the idea. Facebook was ramping up, so I said, maybe it's a good idea to have a social network for students to communicate for free. Then how the name Cubas came up, because Cubas, it's a slang for que onda, like literally means what's up. So I came up before, right?
The idea is there. It's 2007, 2008, and of course you're self-funding it, which we'll get to later. But at this point, is there demand for the users like your cousin for Cubas? And then now you're trying to find the sponsored companies and how do you go about this? Mobile penetration at this point is increasing, but it's nowhere near as today, right?
Nothing. I mean, we launched in June 2007. Um, so it's a very simplistic. I mean, I loved the logo and the branding, very vintage branding. But it was just you went into cubas.com, and you just typed in the destination number, the message, and click send. That's it. So we were getting a lot of traffic, a lot, and but we were like, yeah. But I was funding it, everything, and I was like, oh damn! I mean, I'm gonna run out of money like super soon. So the plan of selling advertising, I mean, two guys from León, Guanajuato, in 2007, where online advertising was just barely, I mean, it was just coming out, I mean, I think banners was the most sophisticated thing that, that you could sell. Of course, we weren't selling anything. So I think it just, and like in mid-November, end of November, my brother gets a phone call, and it was a company or someone here in Mexico City that said, "Hey, my boss wants to buy Quiubas. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, oh, sure." So we came to Mexico. There's a story there, but we decided, of course, not to sell. But we were like, okay, definitely we have to change something because we're not gonna make a living out of this. And I'm more than broke. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
my credit
But
cards maxed out,
but there's
everything.
some interest in value. You got validated.
Yeah,
Somebody's like, "Hey, I want to buy this." Yeah.
exactly. So, and then I started building what I realized it was an API. I had no idea it was an API. So we got our first client was the Volkswagen plant in Puebla. They needed an alert system that needed to be on real time, so they couldn't rely on Blackberries, because Blackberries, unless you had the Blackberry enterprise server, you would get the emails on real time, and the Blackberry enterprise server was super expensive. uh,
Way all the
so
workers could afford it is only maybe a few executives
totally,
or something.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and with the phone, everybody received a text, and that's it. So at the beginning, we started getting a lot of interest, inbound interest, right? That, oh yes, I want to do that, but I have no idea how to implement it. But do you sell the databases? No, we don't sell databases. I just have the connectivity. So that's how it all started. Honestly, I would say until 2012 to actually started, that when it started getting some real traction.
Action. So there's a lot of like ad hoc. A plant would come to you, and then there'd be some issues, or they wouldn't scale enough, and then it'd be a dead period, and then eventually there was this kind of momentum, right, where people saw the use case. And by that point, was the product working well, functioning perfect?
Yes, I think that's how I saw it. And yeah, I mean, I never consider myself a good software engineer, but I coded the things myself, and they worked. So I was happy with that. Yeah, but we had some really good clients. Of course, they didn't give us like a big revenue, but the proof was there. So we had like the Volkswagen plant. Then we had a couple of hospitals, some retailers, a couple of large natural gas distributors. So that kept me excited.
And I think it's so interesting that because in some ways the timing you could say was early, but as smartphone penetration increased, we didn't know that like by 2012, 2013, Mexico probably at that point 70%, 80% of people maybe had mobile phones, so they actually could use it with their employees. But when you started, nope, maybe not that many people had it. Yeah, yeah. So they're like, "How do you want me to talk to them? They don't have a phone." Oh,
Yeah, but that also, when the boom started, right? A lot of companies wanted to copycat what I was doing. There's a lot of cases, like there were even some ads on Google saying, "Hey, we are better and
than
cheaper than
Cubas.
Cube."
Cubas, like we are better than Cubas, faster, more reliable. But that means you know
And a
you're
lot
the
of
market leader.
companies, yes, and a lot of companies saying, "Oh, we're gonna kill Cubas." Like, what are you gonna kill? We're doing like $1,000 a month, but it was difficult because we were doing it uh, for the long term, right? We weren't trying to get rich or millionaires, billionaires uh, in the next year. We were doing something, a legacy product. So there were a lot of like gray routes, illegal traffic, blah blah blah. And of course our service was never the cheapest one. Maybe we were the most expensive one, but a lot of companies at the time, they just wanted to do cheap things, right? And the market was so new that even the telco companies, they weren't aware of the market and the business. So everything was flowing, even if there were illegal connections, they were flowing until the big boom came, actually when the App Store started gaining more power. So they relied on codes, messaging codes to activate it, right? So if the message didn't go through, they were losing. So that's when we were like, oh, this is exactly what I was, exactly what I built my company for. Boom, 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 boom. So everybody that tried to do what I did, what Cubas did at the moment, was dead by 2016, 17. So we killed them all.
So I was going to ask this. So there's the capitalization side. Like I know that you are very active, like bootstrapped the company, and obviously had a very significant outcome. But in this meantime, it's almost like 15 years or 10 years. How are you getting by? Like, how are you growing to make the product better? But like, were you just scraping by and like, I'm going to figure this out? Or was it a challenge?
No, it was a challenge, but I was taking care of it completely. That's when somebody, I mean, I get a lot of requests from founders. And I say, well, if you can do it, I mean, it only takes you 1 week of not sleeping. Why don't you do it? That was my mind. I always say that, like that, that challenge of growing and getting to fix things, even though maybe let's say, oh, we have $10,000 here on the bank, I don't want to spend them on a developer. I don't trust them. I don't want to do a payroll that I cannot charge to someone else, right? So I'd rather keep doing it myself. So I always say, like, hey, I didn't take vacations for like 7 years or something while building it. Of course, I don't regret it at all, but I built that. So everything that's how I overcome those challenges, with money and grit and not sleep.
So like as 2016 comes, there's like this authentication. So now like many people would say now it's become more like this AP2 like acronym becomes more clear and you guys are there ready for it. How did that expedite the growth and revenue and then ultimately lead to this interest from Twilio? And if I read or I listened to a podcast where you had many people come knocking on your door offering to be acquired, like many times you kept saying no, no, no. But what made you eventually say yes?
Well, yeah. I mean, when all this, the mobile thing, I mean, everything nowadays is built on top of mobile, right? So that's something that when as we were growing, 2010s, early those years, we realized that everything was gonna go there. Nowadays, you cannot picture a company, regardless of the size, that it's not built on top of mobile, right? We were so good, so damn good. We were the best in the industry. I'm not in Latam. I'm talking to you about Twilio. Twilio couldn't even compete with my quality of delivery, because I mean that was my thing. Had to do. I didn't have capital, so I had to overcome those things, right, and overcompensate by being the best. So I learned at some point. People were telling me like, "Hey, it's amazing how good the technical part of how a message works and all that." So that was my advantage. That was a key advantage, and that's what kept us being so good at what we did. Right, our life literally depended on depended on. So yeah, so when we were so good, all the big players had to go through us to do the termination in Latam and mainly in Mexico.
So essentially, you got to a point where every, I would say, large on top layer application that wanted some authentication was coming to Quiubas for this verification. Like you guys were the number one player in the market at that.
And I think that even at the time of the acquisition, 2020, we had like 95% market share. I remember that I had a conversation with my brother in Barcelona, going back to the hotel in the Mobile World Congress, and we were like, okay, we have to make this a monopoly. I mean, that was 2013 and 14, and I said yes. So my mission is that every single message that goes into Mexico has to go through Quiubas. That's the mission. So we almost accomplished it.
Share a little bit about why that was the right time for you to say, okay, Twilio, if I understood correctly, was a customer. They knew the product well. And then you realized this was the right time to do potentially an acquisition and be merged with them, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Tulio had been working with us for like 5 years, six. We always thought or discussed some potential ideas on how to strengthen our partnership and how we interacted. I remember that at one point, Doug Gardner, he was a senior VP at the time in Twilio. He said, "I would love to acquire you, but I think I would be killing you, because what makes you so good is that you're so fast, so good. You're not part of a big company, right? I mean, I think at the time we were 16 people. So yeah, it's less than 20 compared to this. So let's just find a way to keep, strengthening our cooperation." But then, a lot of companies, I mean, Twilio was our fifth acquisition offer. And so, but finally, when it came, they just sent us an email. "Hey, I have the requirement for us to acquire Quiubas. Are you interested?" Yes or no? Yes. So I just got an email right away with a NDA and the terms and everything, and that's how the process started. Of course, we had leverage because I mean, one thing is that I learned is that it's completely different to sell your company than to being acquired, right? So I wasn't selling my company, I got acquired. And also it's good. It's completely different. I mean, having an exit is good, but being acquired, having an exit to a Silicon Valley giant, it's amazing. So why did we decide it? We were like, okay, if we always thought or we always had the idea that this could happen, right? So we weren't against like, oh, it's my baby. Yeah, we'll build something different later. When that happened, we somehow had our mind already in that position, but by having the leverage, we were like, okay, it has to make sense for us. If it doesn't, hey, let's continue building. But we were on the point that where we said, okay, if the transaction doesn't go through for whatever reason, we will go out and raise money, but we will go and raise money, but we will go and compete against the Twilios, the Infobips, all those guys. So that was the plan. That was the play.
It was like, we're either going to have the leverage to accept this or we'll take this to the next level with some outside capital, which is interesting because I didn't know that. I haven't heard that from you in other interviews. What's full circle here with Quiubas? What was one thing now, if you look back, maybe you would have done differently?
For starters, I would have delegated more activities as something that I'm doing differently, and I think it's maybe because I'm getting older. Right? Is that I'm more wise or less dumb? I don't know. Is that I used to be the guy who you cannot do that. I will do it. So I had everything, and the thing is that at some point I was able to tackle everything. But that's that looking back on perspective, it completely to me is a signal that something could have been done faster or bigger. So that would be the largest lesson, right? There's a lot of, I mean, I always think that I had the best team in Cubas, but I think that I would have done it earlier. I stopped. I mean, even in 2016, I was even replying to support tickets.
That's great. That's great. 16. But then in 20, at what point did that stop? 2020? No, you were still replying.
No. End of 2016. That's when I stopped coding, when I stopped the ticket supports, everything. Yeah.
You said, okay, I gotta step up and gotta hire someone for this. So you get acquired, and then some might say, why go back into the fire? Like, you obviously have enough to live the life you want now, I'm sure, because you guys bootstrapped it and you got sold or acquired, not sold. So why go back for round two and go back for more?
It's because I'm crazy. One of my investors on Saptiva, Meltem, she said, "Wow, you are the type of founder that I like. That you are so wacko, that you are so crazy."
You literally wanted to do this again, and you just
Yes,
got out. Why are you going back?
and even my friends, like I remember that. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you know Inigo. Inigo, he's a very good friend of mine, and he's always like, "Why the hell are you so crazy? You accomplished the dream. Why go again?" But at the beginning, we were like, "Let's maybe do a VC fund." And my brother and myself said, because it's like, maybe it's a natural step, right? But then I said to myself, I'm quite sure I'm not gonna be a good VC at this point in my life. Why? Because I want to be so hands-on. I'm so critical, and I'm kicking everybody because like, why do you need money for that? So this is not my time, right? Exactly. And we started doing some traditional businesses, mainly in real estate. But it's like driving 300 miles per hour, and now we're doing 50 miles per hour, and then we're doing 15 miles per hour.
It's like
Life
you're in a Ferrari and you just went to an
is
18 wheeler with no
exactly
turns.
like what. So life is completely different, and I think that only if you've gone through that process, you understand how life is completely different when you're on this side, right.
When you meet founders and they ask you for advice, do you, because I'm sure so many people reach out to you because you are in a league of your own, and there's very few that have done this in Mexico, bootstrapped and been acquired by a premier Silicon Valley company. Do people ask for advice and you're always like, I don't know if you want to go through this?
Yes, I mean, before starting Saptiva, I used to I mean, when I was like testing the waters for the VC fund or angel investments and all that, I used to go out to some events, right? And it was funny because a lot of people don't know me. They used to say like, who is this guy? And I always tell them, hey, it's fine if you like being on the cover of the magazines. I don't care. I just want to be the best tech company in Latam, in the world, galaxy, whatever. So I was just working. I wasn't, doing PR. So that's why you don't know me, guys. As soon as that, then some friends, Hernan, tell me, yes, he told me, hey, you should share this with the ecosystem because you're an example. So I said, yeah, that I like. I like sharing. So when I started going to events, I started getting a lot of people doing lines to talk to me. And I said, okay, just tell me, just for respect for everyone, just ask me something that you want. I learned that I shouldn't. If I gave my email was full of email, and I just couldn't, take exactly. But nowadays, people, I have a lot of people who write to me on Twitter or right on LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn. I had to block to, only doing my email. Yes. Otherwise, I used to get a lot, and then people were like, "Okay, hey, I just want to make sure you read my like 10 times."
No, and also it's tough because you only have so many hours in a day. You have this knowledge, but you can only do so much. I can't build this company for you. Whatever question
So
you have, I probably have answered it already. But that's why Twitter's great. You share your
yeah,
insights.
I share. So that's why I started getting being more a little bit more active, just sharing stuff. But also, I started getting some haters as well from, especially other founders, which, yeah, that so I think going back to kind of your question on how, like, in Mexico, the founders, it's like, I would say everybody, wants to support each other and all that, but it was like, bah, why are you saying that? I'm very opinionated on my experience. I never give opinions on external affairs or ecosystem. I always say, hey, this works for me. I don't do that because of this. I didn't do that. And some well-known founders, those guys that are on the magazines and that, they're like, oh, why do you say that? Ah, you're wrong. It's okay. I mean, everybody does what is better for them. Yeah, I try to provide feedback and maybe some time I mean, people, when they ask me or email me or whatever, I say, oh, just send me your deck or give me a specific question on what do you want me to help you with. That's it.
I'd love for you to kind of hit on this new venture. And Septiva, what is your mission for this? We know why you're back into it, and really why you think this is important to drive the LATAM or Mexico's AI ecosystem.
I mean, the I built this because I started seeing that in Latam we consume AI. We don't produce AI, which, I mean, it's fine. We're an emerging region, but it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, that's like the romantic framework for this. But AI, honestly, is really changing the life how we know it. I mean, it's not as mobile, like now everybody has a phone, and before we didn't. It goes way, way farther than that. But we still don't know what's out there. When people ask me, how do you see Saptiva in 10 years, 5 years? I said, I have no idea. And whoever gives you a response for that are into AI, as they say, they have no idea what they're talking about. Because right now, it's just like we just, rang the bell for AI, and we know somebody's there, right? And somebody's open the door, but we have no idea what's behind the door. But I know Saptiv is gonna be there because we're the fundamentals, not just the layer that can be replaceable so fast. Tomorrow wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to kill all these startups, all the companies that are doing this, and they'll do it like that."
My question is now, and I think this is very prevalent to Mexico, is you're so entrenched in the tech ecosystem here. You obviously built a company from the corporate side in the legacy players. How have they been receptive to AI? And do you think that there is enough reception and curiosity, or do you wish there was more? Where do you think this stands?
I think on the part from the demand, I think it's fine. It's fairly new, and a lot of people think that maybe this year, for the past 6 7 months, I think players have been more cautious on taking the next step into AI. I always say that like the AI as we know it right now is like 90% expectation and 10% reality. But that was because all the fuzzy words and everything that was from last year since ChatGPT exploded. So on the demand part, they're cautious. But on the supply part, it's where it's crazy because there are a lot of people that now they sell you courses and tricks and hacks on everything. So that helps the ecosystem become more, I would say, cautious on AI, because then they have somehow entrance to these companies and they tell you, hey, I can make you wipe out 95% of your payroll with AI. So then companies start, when that's not true. It's not that AI cannot do it. It can, but AI is only as good as the data that you feed into it. And the data, that's the real problem nowadays. The US has a big problem with it because of legacy systems and interconnection. So emerging regions like ours, we did a proof of concept for a big company here in Mexico. So we started automating. They wanted to automate a workflow, so we helped them with that. And they said the problem is that all our data sets are, guess what, on paper.
I mean, you knew that was coming before you talked to them, I'm sure, but you didn't believe it. You're like,
Yeah, like,
please don't be that
not,
way.
not even on PDF,
No.
paper, because they go through a couple of guys that are the only guys that know it, and they've been here for 120 years. I said, yeah, then that's the problem. You have to focus on doing that first, so it fits the data here. So that's why it's like, yeah, maybe companies want to do that, but also like with a big financial institution that we're working with, sorry, they said, okay, are you really telling me that I can do my workflows with the data here in my data center? So yes, it's amazing, because we have been hesitant to automate critical workflows because we don't want to give our data to OpenAI, and we don't see how to do it. So I said, okay, yes, but it's even more like the part of the orchestration is like, my view on AI is that it's such a big invention, or how you want to call it. Why do you have to be depending on the hyperscalers? I'm not against them, but it's not for everyone. Even like let's say a bank, maybe they need, I mean, and I'm talking based on experience, right? A bank will say, okay, this process can live on Google Cloud, okay, but I have these other criticals that for regulation, or maybe I don't know, whatever decision internally, they don't have, they cannot leave the country. I have to keep them on my data center, and then I have other that I want to have them under my desk. Okay, good luck doing that with a hyperscaler, right? What it does is orchestrates all those 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever parts you want. So what we want to do is to offer the clients, enterprises, developers, the flexibility to deploy wherever they need, right?
Which makes sense in the sense of, in this market, as you've mentioned multiple times, it's emerging, so it's so different, and in some ways you can say, well, you should be a hyperscaler, or what are you doing, or you could say, slowly but surely will be the entry point, and over the next 10 years things might change and be more digital and on the cloud.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I think now, I mean, a lot of progress on tech and everything is thanks to these hyperscalers, the AWS, the Googles, the Azures, but they're built for the U.S. market, right? So they're built for the U.S. market, and of course we can use them, but they don't cater to our needs. They don't cater to European needs, to African needs, to Indian needs. So that's why we start seeing, like these silos that will happen, because it's not only about, automating workflows or tasks and employees and all that. It's about, like, the intelligence and how the artificial intelligence can give you advantage in a war or a social political device, or whatever. So that's why you start seeing, like, okay, China is going very deep with the efforts on their AI. Japan is having their own sovereign AI infrastructure. Europe as well. So Latam is a big region. Why shouldn't we have our own infra, our own AI? So to not to be dependent on other players, right? We're big enough, we're good enough. So
I don't think there's a better profile to ask about this, but when you think of now startups and you think of entrepreneurs pursuing building generational companies, how do you evaluate the ecosystem's development the last, I don't know, you could probably say 20 years? How do you give advice when people are looking at, hey, Angel, do I get venture back? Do I go raise money? Maybe I bootstrap it. What advice do you give? And there's not one answer, I'm sure, but how do you think about it?
yeah, I think what I've learned is that what's your life goal? It has to start with that, right? You don't have to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or maybe you want. It has to it has to start with that. That's a personal conviction on super, right? You want to be the next Elon Musk, perfect. The next Bill Gates, yes. But maybe you just say, "Hey, I want to be a millionaire. I want to have a lifestyle business that allows me to go on vacation 10 times a year, having my Lamborghini, my Ferrari, my flying private. That's it. Have to be a multimillionaire for that. You don't have to raise money for that. You just have to invest a couple of years bootstrapping, and then you will get all the profits, and you can live that life, right? So I say it has to go with that. So, and if you want a lifestyle business for that, don't raise money. Just put all the effort there, because that means that you're not willing to take the effort and the sacrifices to do 10, 20, 30, 100x, right? So if you're not willing to do that, you're gonna die with busy money.
It's like you take two pills, and if you take one, there's no going back to the other.
Yeah, totally. So it's like, okay, you want the glory of the gods. Okay, you need a lot of sacrifices, not just money. So I always tell them, okay, what's exactly what you want? What lifestyle do you want? Do you want to be a legacy company? Do you want to be known or recognized for something or not? I'm not against raising money. I'm just against raising money just for the heck of raising money, or just because you want to announce rounds. So it's like that's always the advice that I tell them. Just okay, you have to define exactly what life do you want, what's your life's mission, and then with that, okay, if you define this or that, okay, let's do it. But also, please don't look at social media. Don't get influenced by people that are saying, "Oh, I here and this and this and this and that," because it's building a company is already hard as it is. You need a lot of stomach to build a company. And now, if you're just seeing here and here, there's a lot of noise. You're gonna fail. That's for sure. So those are the advices.
And I think, and you know this so well, and you probably have founders come to you, is until you understand some of the economics and some of the clauses that are put with venture money, and you might sell a company for $100 million and you get the same amount of capital because you owned less as someone who bootstrapped it and sold it for 10 million or even less. And I think
Exactly.
that is just somehow lost in translation.
No, totally, and I think that most of the founders don't see that. That's why I tell them, don't look at social media, and just worry about building a good business, regardless of what you're building, because you want to say, hey, I sold my company for $100 billion. Yes, I don't care about the amount. How much money did you get? Oh, I got 1 million. I don't want to think all the effort and struggle you did to have a company, onto 100 billion valuation, and that you got 1 million. I mean, I would have done completely other things, right? So I always tell them that. And I've heard a couple of really ugly stories about companies that were acquired here in Latam by the actual companies, by the CEOs that acquired them, and they said, oh, it's sad because the founders of this company, I mean, known companies that that they said, and they got nothing. They got like $120,000 because when they started, on the term sheets, on the safes and everything, the
Mhm.
conversion note, they were like, what happened?
And then you're in a position where you're kind of lose leverage. So they know you probably can't raise at your next round because your valuation's too high. You're going to take a massive dilution, but you can be acquired, but they know that, so they're going to drop that offer and purchase price quite a bit because they know you can't do anything. You're handcuffed.
It's another game. It's a completely
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I do obviously have a lot of interest in venture. I just think sometimes it's not always as transparent down here as maybe it is in other regions.
yeah, and I think it has to do with, I guess, the lack of capital in the region. So they have to be much more careful, and also maybe just the way the Latinos are. No, they, that they don't say no.
So I was going to ask this, and you mentioned it. Do you think that Latinos, or I guess you say founders building here, are a significant disadvantage when it comes to scaling in Mexico, or do you think they have to think from a global perspective from the beginning?
I think back again to my previous comment is like, what is it that you want, right? Because you can do a very strong company local here in Mexico, and that's it. But if you want to do a larger part, you have to. I mean, in my case, I don't see Latin America as different countries. I see it as a whole, as a region, because as a region, we are powerful enough to compete with other markets. Mexico is the holy grail of Latam, excluding Brazil, of course. But Mexico per se is not big enough or attractive enough, global market. So I think it depends exactly on what you want to do, what's your ambitions. But then again, you can be a perfectly big, successful, profitable company just by serving the Mexican market.
And I asked that because I was running through an exercise myself. I was thinking, is there a true way for like a B2B startup here that's really targeting legacy players, like large companies, not SMEs, to get to 50 million just in Mexico in revenue? And it's like you start thinking it's tough, or maybe you'd probably say 100 million to be venture backed, right? But I don't think they need more than one country.
But no, I think that every startup starts struggling crossing the 50 million MRR, and I've only seen that on different countries, not serving a single country. Yeah,
What do you think the most important trait is for a founder? You've done it, you've exited, you're doing it again.
focus and discipline. I'm convinced that that's the only. I mean, when people ask me how are you successful, I say because I'm very disciplined. I'm relentless. I'm disciplined. That's how I cope with everything that I lack.
Where do you see Mexico's tech ecosystem in 20 years? It's tough to see, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
In 20 years, hopefully.
Come on, I need some assurance.
No, what I would like to see honestly, and that's something that I really trying to push or to help, is that there are more opportunities for founders. Not Mexico in Latam, but obviously Mexico is my country, right? Talent in Mexico, and I think it's worldwide, right? But here specifically in Mexico, talent is so spread that no one. Let me rephrase that. Talent is distributed equally, but not opportunities. Opportunities are so scarce, right? And you see that on the VC funds, right? Who owns the VC funds? Which founders have access to VC funds, right? So it's that part. You barely see funds that started from without outside the big family names in Mexico. It's fine, but that's what I mean. Like that closes the opportunities for so many talented founders. So to me, and I said it in a government event last year. Instead of the government, the country being proud of having, oh, Google is here, AWS is here, and the unicorns and that's fine. But every country can do that, because what if they say, oh, you'll pay zero taxes? Boom, they will go there. That's not what we need to
Yeah, yeah.
develop an environment, an
Hmm.
ecosystem. We need to support the founders, the guys that will create the new startups.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see. And hopefully in 20 years, that's two generations.
That's
So
two
hopefully
generations.
do that.
Something happens. Yeah. No, you come from the school of thought, and Hernan, who I've enjoyed speaking with, and he's very transparent, is Mac. It's so interesting when I think of our journey with Angel Ventures. He says the same thing. It's a lot of people that supported us early on actually were investors not from Mexico. And so when these companies we've backed do have these exits and do really well, the money's actually not getting recycled back. It's because a lot of these investors believe in Mexico, maybe sometimes more than locals, including myself. I tell people I think I'm a bigger fan of Mexico than some other people here, and I'm not from here.
Totally. But I think that's part of the Latin in general, right? Like as they say, like who's the biggest enemy of Mexican? Another
I'm
Mexican.
Mexican. I appreciate it. We should link up at some time this year, but I've been a fan from afar.
No, thank you, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It's
Yeah.
a completely different type of podcast that I've done, but I liked it.
That's a wrap on this episode of Cut the Check, presented by VCMX. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed and leave a review. It really helps more founders and investors discover the show. You can find me on LinkedIn at MacMeyer or check out my website at macmeyer.com for more insights on startups, venture capital, and the Latin America ecosystem. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week.